For the whole history of sim racing, there has been a debate that until now has never been settled, and this is a debate that goes to the very heart of sim racing because it's about Gran Turismo, the game which took sim racing mainstream, the real driving simulator. And the question is, which is the best Gran Turismo game of all time? And it's such an important question because over the last 27 years, Gran Turismo has gone in pretty much every direction you can go in racing. It's done Japanese street culture, it's done NASCAR, it's done WRC, it's done GT racing, it's taken sim racers to become real world racers, it's worked with the maestro Lewis Hamilton, it's done the best in class online racing, it's pushed the boundaries of virtual reality, it's worked with manufacturers to bring concept cars into the game and then into the real world, and this is all represented through the different games in the series. So in this video you are going to find out definitively which are the best Gran Turismo games. Why am I the person to tell you? I've played every single Gran Turismo game. I've even been in the Gran Turismo movie. I've spoken with Kazuya Miyuchi, the creator of the Gran Turismo series, and I've built this whole YouTube channel on Gran Turismo. I love it and I hate it. Let's start with the ones that I hate. These are the worst Gran Turismo games, and I'm going to explain why. So I'm going to start with Gran Turismo 6. I know a lot of you are nodding already like, yes, he knows what he's talking about. And there are many reasons why Gran Turismo 6 is the worst Gran Turismo game of all time. The scope was massive. It was an impossible game where it tried to do so many things, and the ultimate game was just not very enjoyable. The frame rate was absolutely terrible. Some of the car models were atrocious. So basically, in a bid to, say we've got 1 million different cars in the game, they were using PS2 level quality car models. The game was delayed. It came out on PS3 after the PS4 had launched, so there was no way it represented the cutting edge of the PlayStation consoles of the time. It tried to do way too many disciplines, and it just was not an enjoyable experience. The servers were ended, relatively soon as well, so the online aspect just didn't continue forward. And Gran Turismo 6, I think, was the hubris of Gran Turismo, where it tried to go too far. So what is next? What was better than Gran Turismo 6, but is still not great? This is pretty shocking. Gran Turismo 7, the current Gran Turismo game, is the second worst Gran Turismo of all time. Why? Again, it's just a bit of a confused game. It doesn't know really what it's trying to do. Is it trying to be a GT3 sort of simulation racing game? It doesn't do that very well because it doesn't have the latest GT3s. Is it trying to be a really good VR racing game? It hasn't done that because it hasn't updated VR since the first patch came in. Is it trying to be a game where you can drive many different relevant cars? It's not, because the cars that they add are just stupid cars like the Sony concept car and silly VGTs. It's not adding relevant cars. Is it a game where you're meant to go globe-trotting on the world's best circuits? No, because they still so many circuits they have not added. They added hardly any more circuits from its predecessor GT Sport. Is it a game that's meant to be the pinnacle of online racing? No, because actually the lobbies are less populated than GT Sport. You can't have 20-player lobbies, you can only have 16-player lobbies. The Gran Turismo World Tour has also been massively cut back. So it's a game that I think is just, again, too big in scope. And this is going to be a theme of this video here, and I'm going to throw in a few surprises. But when Kazuya Miyuchi and the Gran Turismo team have a really focused scope and they achieve it, they genuinely create something magical. When they try and do too many things and bring it into one game, it just ends up being a little bit of a mush, and that is where Gran Turismo 7 is, unfortunately. But what is better than Gran Turismo 7? What's next in the list? I'm going to go to the original Gran Turismo. Some of you are going to be disappointed this is not coming later in the video, but I'll tell you why. The first Gran Turismo, Polyphony Digital were not necessarily a racing studio. They were a studio in Japan, and they created Gran Turismo sleeping in the office and putting it together. Yes, it was a racing simulation game, but it was not the real driving simulator. It was an incredible game, but it wasn't yet a franchise. We didn't know that Kazuya Miyuchi was a genius. For me, it was actually sort of like a portal, a vision to what was possible if Sony really funded it. And this is going to sound harsh, but if you go back and play it, you'll see that the physics are really weird. There isn't too much meat around the events and the championships, and ultimately Gran Turismo 2 was just a better game than Gran Turismo 1 in pretty much every way. So yes, Gran Turismo was the real driving simulator, it started the franchise, but honestly, in the passage of time, I don't think it's the best Gran Turismo game ever. The next one on the list is Gran Turismo 5. I think Gran Turismo 5 is better than Gran Turismo 6. This is very controversial. It came out earlier in the PS3 cycle. It was also a little bit more... It had a little bit more swagger at that time. Like, Sony was sort of top of the world. The PS2 had been amazing. The PS3 had just been launched. It was incredibly powerful. They had these tie-ups with Red Bull, Adrian Newey, and Sebastian Vettel. They were adding, different disciplines in. NASCAR was in, WRC was in. Kaz was now seen as this kind of visionary, and there was a swagger to Gran Turismo 5, and it wasn't quite yet as bloated and as dated as Gran Turismo 6. So yes, it's not the best Gran Turismo game of all time, but it showed what they were capable of. It showed that Polyphony Digital were capable of being this globe-trotting, absolutely world-leading studio. You can think of the lineage back to Gran Turismo 1 that was sort of a proof of concept, as I said. Now this is the realisation of everything. It had its flaws though. It didn't run particularly well. You still had the old models. They had to sacrifice a lot because of the scope of the game, but it kind of made sense for its time. So I have fond memories of Gran Turismo 5. But what was even better than Gran Turismo 5? Well, I'm going to throw a cheeky one in here. I want to talk about GT Academy. GT Academy wasn't strictly a game. It sort of ran alongside Gran Turismo. But I remember watching this on TV, and the idea and the fact that this was executed, I think has had such an impact on sim racing, it's impossible to measure. This was the first time that sim racers were chosen and taken to drive real cars. It is of course the basis of the Gran Turismo movie. You have drivers like Lucas Ordonez and Jan Mardenborough who have proved everything they need to prove in real life, and they are real inspirations for me. And GT Academy separated Gran Turismo from being a game to being an actual culture. So I feel like we need to mention GT Academy as part of the Gran Turismo story. It separates Gran Turismo from Forza or Need for Speed or even iRacing or ACC. It makes it magical, it makes it relatable, it makes it Hollywood. It makes it something that if you're a kid playing on the sofa on your PS2 controller or PS3 controller or PS4, you feel that kind of twinge that maybe I could be a racing driver. Maybe I'm going to go down to my local kart track, and it's a manifestation of that, and it's very, very, very powerful. So GT Academy, I definitely want to mention. Now, we are about to get to the all-time classic Gran Turismo games, the games you need to know about. These are true legends, but I do want to mention I have a Gran Turismo 7 Beginner Masterclass that is the best way to get faster at GT7. Click the link in description to find out more. Here we go then, Gran Turismo 2. This improved on Gran Turismo 1 in pretty much every way, and I think it's bordering on magic. The physics were much better. There were more cars, there were more tracks, there was a actual compelling sort of career or story. The idea that you were saving up credits to buy new cars and then you were upgrading them. The merging of real world sort of data and scans into the game was a new era of sim racing. This really felt like it was the real driving simulator. It was legit. If you went around to someone's house and they had Gran Turismo 2, you felt like they were a proper car nerd. They knew their stuff. People have bought cars in real life based on playing them in Gran Turismo 2, and that's something that continues. I bought the car, the sports car that I drive in real life, because of Gran Turismo Sport, and that is actually the next game in this series. That's going to surprise a lot of you. I think this is almost the best Gran Turismo game of all time. It was so incredibly focused. There's two reasons why Gran Turismo Sport has almost mythical status, and I think it's going to be looked back at just an incredible game. The first thing is the focus. This was about online racing, online respectful competitive racing, and it absolutely nailed it. Sport mode, the ranking system, the safety rating. You could go on, you could race on a Monday evening, Tuesday evening, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You could race against similar players, names you recognise, have close battling. I'm someone that, you know, I've done a lot of karting in real life. I've won karting championships. I've raced against rivals. I've made friends. I've made enemies. I've done the exact same thing in Gran Turismo Sport. It really is incredible. And the second factor was, weirdly, the COVID pandemic. The pandemic meant 2020, 2021, going into 2022, people were at home on their PS4s with an internet connection, and they were racing online a lot. It was an incredible time. But the best Gran Turismo game of all time has to be Gran Turismo 4. This is, if you talk to people and say, what is the best Gran Turismo game? Gran Turismo 4 is the answer you're going to get most often. It's hard to explain why. The graphics aren't as good as 5, 6 or 7. It doesn't have that sort of rawness of Gran Turismo 2. It's sort of in the middle, but it just felt like the perfect balance. It was on the PS2, which was just, again, sort of magical hardware, unbelievably powerful, and you could race so many disciplines. You could race so many cars. It worked from the very entry-level cars to driving the Le Mans prototypes. The physics just were absolutely mad. I'm not going to mention Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec because I'm just not going to. Instead, I want to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments your ranking of the best Gran Turismo games of all time. And like I said, if you want to get faster at Gran Turismo, go to getfasteronline.com. I will see you there.